Greetings to everyone across Africa, and to everyone who believes that this continent has the right to shape its own future. There are moments in history when a nation is tested not only on the battlefield, but in the markets, the streets, and the daily lives of ordinary people. Mali may be facing one of those moments right now. In recent weeks, reports of market fires, attacks on transport vehicles, disruptions to commercial activities, and threats against economic infrastructure have raised serious concerns across the country. For many Malians, these incidents are more than isolated security problems. They represent a growing fear that the conflict is entering a new phase. For years, the focus of violence was often on military positions, security forces, and strategic installations. Today, however, many observers are asking a different question. What happens when the targets are no longer military camps, but the livelihoods of ordinary citizens? A burned marketplace does not only destroy goods, it destroys savings, it destroys opportunities, it destroys the hard work of families who may have spent years building a small business. When a transport truck is attacked, the consequences reach far beyond the driver. Farmers, traders, shop owners, and consumers all feel the impact. This is why the recent incidents have generated so much attention. The concern is not simply about property damage. It is about whether economic pressure can succeed where military pressure has failed. Yet despite these challenges, one reality remains difficult to ignore. Across Bamako and many other parts of Mali, people continue to work, trade, and support one another. Rather than collapsing into panic, many communities are showing determination and resilience. The question now is no longer just what happened. The real question is whether this emerging economic battle can weaken the spirit of a nation that has already endured years of conflict. What is happening in Mali today follows a pattern that has appeared in several modern conflicts across Africa. When armed groups struggle to achieve decisive results on the battlefield, they often shift their focus toward economic targets. Markets, transport networks, food supplies, and commercial activities become part of the conflict itself. This strategy has been observed in different forms across the continent. In Sudan, years of conflict have repeatedly disrupted local markets and commercial centers, making daily life increasingly difficult for ordinary families. In Somalia, extremist groups have frequently targeted economic activity, understanding that fear and financial hardship can sometimes create more pressure than direct military confrontation. Similar patterns have appeared in parts of Nigeria, where attacks on farms, food supplies, and transportation routes have affected entire communities. The logic behind these actions is relatively simple. A government can often replace damaged equipment or reinforce military positions. Rebuilding public confidence is far more difficult. When goods become scarce, when prices rise, and when livelihoods disappear, frustration can spread rapidly throughout society. That is why attacks on economic infrastructure attract so much attention. They are not only attempts to cause immediate damage, they are also attempts to influence public perception and weaken confidence in institutions. Modern conflicts are no longer fought only with weapons. They are also fought through markets, supply chains, transportation networks, and public confidence. The objective is often psychological as much as physical. For Mali, this broader context matters. The recent incidents are not simply local events. They fit into a larger pattern that security analysts have observed in many conflict zones. The challenge for any nation facing such pressure is not only to restore security, but also to protect the economic foundations that allow communities to function and recover. To understand why these developments matter, it is necessary to look at the role of Bamako itself. The capital is far more than the political center of Mali. It is the country's largest commercial hub, a place where trade, transportation, services, and daily economic activity intersect. Every day, thousands of people depend on markets, transport routes, warehouses, and small businesses to earn a living. When these systems function normally, they provide stability not only for Bamako, but also for communities connected to it throughout the country. This is why attacks against commercial activity create concerns that go beyond immediate financial losses. The objective may not simply be to destroy goods or damage property. The deeper objective may be to create uncertainty. When traders become afraid to move goods, when transport companies face higher risks, and when families worry about rising prices, confidence begins to suffer. In many modern conflicts, confidence becomes a strategic target. Armed groups understand that governments rely on public trust. If people begin to believe that instability is permanent, social pressure increases, and national morale can weaken. This is where the challenge facing the Malian authorities becomes particularly significant. President Assimi Goita and state institutions are not only expected to respond to security threats, they are also expected to reassure citizens that economic life can continue despite those threats. The situation therefore becomes a test of confidence as much as a test of security. Can markets remain active? Can trade continue? Can communities preserve normal life despite ongoing pressure? These questions are becoming increasingly important because the outcome may shape how people view the future. The struggle is no longer only about territory or military operations. It is also about whether confidence, stability, and national unity can withstand a prolonged period of economic pressure. For President Assimi Goita, the current situation represents far more than a security challenge. It is a test of whether Mali can maintain national cohesion while facing pressure on multiple fronts at the same time. In recent years, the Malian leadership has repeatedly argued that armed groups seek not only to create insecurity, but also to weaken the country's economy and disrupt everyday life. From this perspective, attacks on transportation, trade, and commercial activity are viewed as part of a broader effort to undermine confidence in the state. What makes the current situation particularly significant is that economic pressure can affect people who are far removed from the front line. A farmer transporting produce, a merchant operating a small shop, or a family purchasing basic goods may all experience the consequences. As a result, the response cannot rely solely on military operations. It also requires maintaining economic activity, supporting affected communities, and preserving public confidence. At the same time, many Malians continue to demonstrate resilience. Markets reopen after disruptions. Traders continue their activities. Communities organize support networks for those affected by insecurity. These actions may appear small individually, but together they help sustain social stability. There is also a broader regional dimension. Across the alliance of Sahel states, developments in Mali are being closely watched. The country has become an important symbol of how governments in the region respond to prolonged security challenges while pursuing greater political and strategic autonomy. This is why the current situation extends beyond economics alone. It has become a measure of national determination. Those seeking instability may hope that economic hardship will generate frustration and division, yet history often shows that societies under pressure can also become more united when they believe their future is at stake. The coming months may therefore reveal not only the strength of Mali's institutions, but also the strength of the national spirit that supports them. As Mali confronts these challenges, an important question remains unanswered. What happens next? The answer may shape not only the future of Mali, but also the future of security and sovereignty across the wider Sahel region. One possible scenario is that attacks against economic targets continue. Markets, transportation routes, commercial centers, and supply chains could remain vulnerable as armed groups seek new ways to generate pressure. If this occurs, protecting civilian economic activity may become just as important as protecting military installations. A second scenario involves stronger protective measures by the state. Increased security around markets, improved monitoring of transportation corridors, and greater cooperation between local communities and authorities could reduce vulnerabilities. Success in this area would help preserve public confidence and limit the broader impact of economic disruption. A third possibility is the growing involvement of local communities in safeguarding economic life. Throughout Africa, history has shown that resilience often begins at the community level. When citizens remain organized, informed, and united, they can strengthen society's ability to withstand prolonged pressure. At the international level, Mali continues to face criticism from some Western governments and organizations regarding its political direction and security policies. Supporters of the current leadership respond that every sovereign nation has the right to determine its own partnerships and strategic priorities. Regardless of where one stands in this debate, the discussion highlights a broader issue facing many African countries: how to balance sovereignty, stability, development, and international expectations. Perhaps the most important lesson extends beyond Mali itself. Modern conflicts are no longer defined only by military strength. Economic resilience, social cohesion, and national confidence have become equally important. The story unfolding in Mali is therefore not only about markets, transportation, or security, it is about whether a nation can protect its future while navigating one of the most complex challenges of the modern era. History does not belong to the strongest. It belongs to those who understand the rules of the game.